Oh, why hello there. Getting right to the point with this one. Pain. I'm sure we all know pain, especially if you played Elden Ring. And now for what I'm gonna do in this challenge run, well, I'm gonna reflect that pain right back at the game. This is Worn-Out Gamer 4, and make sure to sit back, relax, and or listen, as I'm gonna run a pain train right through Elden Ring. First I gotta enter said lands, pick up my horse real quick, and it's time for me to make the journey to the deep sea Ophrah well. But I'm not gonna be using the traditional route. No one has time to wait for those long elevator rides, so I'm gonna skip it. To do this, I enter Caelid. I also picked up my Physik along the way, but that's irrelevant. Then I head into the abandoned cave just to activate the Grace. I'm doing this because this is the nearest Grace to the shortcut. Now I backtrack a tiny bit while sticking to the right side, till I reach this little corner right here, and now I make two very specific jumps. A very small rock platform that's protruding off of the ravine, and the next jump is a piece of root that's poking out of the rocks. With that, make the final jump to where the item is, then quickly avoid the bear to the best of your abilities, because if there's one thing you don't want, it's having to deal with those jumps again. And now you activate the Grace and voila! The entirety of the Sea Ophrah River has been completely skipped. No elevator rides and no stone sword keys required. Now these jumps are a lot easier said than done, because if done incorrectly you'll just slide off the locations that you need to land on. Land 1mm off and suffer fatal fall damage. And worst yet, there's a death trigger nearby. Great, now that I'm down here, Malenia sees me worthy of joining the round table. Then continuing down here, I avoid the Golem archers in order to pick up the spiked palisade shield, which is going to be our weapon of choice for this challenge run. Now I'm just missing one more thing to truly start the challenge run, which is the Ash of War that's going to be attached to this. Before I can obtain it, I'm going to need a few things in order to get to the area. So it's time to head over to Fort Height, which I'm very much not welcomed here. And I'm just here to pick up one piece of the Dectus medallion. Now it's time to head over to Northern Dragon Barrow, where I go around the giant rune balloon that is known as Grail, in order to reach Fort Faroth, which holds the other piece of the medallion that I need. Now before I make my journey to the elevator, I aid Warrior Jar Alexander, one of the best bros in Elden Ring. He also gives me a little pick-me-up. And now it's time to make the journey to the lift. With Altus Plateau unlocked, I can now head over to the Loux Ruins in order to take care of the little scarab that spawns here in order to get the Ash of War I need, the Shield Crash. And after equipping it to the Spiked Palisade Shield, I can now crash right through my enemies with force. And also bleed damage, because this thing causes hemorrhaging. But before I start using it against main bosses, I'm gonna go upgrade it a teeny tiny bit. So it's time to head into the Rhea Lucario Crystal Tunnel and pick up any little stray stones I can get my grubby little hands on. Look at this guy working for his stone. I don't know why he just doesn't simply pick it up like I can. Whoop, and it seems like they're not too happy about that forbidden ability. Anyways, I continue to pick up any stray smithing stones. Thank you. And now at the end of the tunnel, I fight the crystal boss here, who was a walk in the park. Bring on the pain train. The end of the shield crash just sends him flying to the ground. Ow. There's no reason to show this fight because it's just the same thing over and over. What a poor existence. And now that the boss is down, I get the first normal smithing stone bell. Then simply just pick up the second one at the sealed tunnel. Literally there near the start after the illusionary wall. But I'm not done with this place because it's time to pick up even more smithing stones. And this location has one of the difficult ones to get at this time of the game. After letting the Adjudicator destroy my enemies and the statue down here, I'm rewarded with 3 smithing stone 6. For the next location I need to go to, I use the abandoned cave Grace, then jump off the left side of the entrance just so I can quickly get to the America statue down here. And there we go, Statue America. And after spawning back in, I can now quickly make my way to the Celia Crystal Tunnel. Here is where I get the rest of the smithing stone 5 that I need, as well as meeting my own death by being wombo comboed. Okay. I absolutely loathe these Kindred of Rot. They are very annoying enemies to fight, but luckily I can just bully them with the shield crash. And after successfully hiding after I murdered one of their kin. Yep, that was nothing. Your ally totally did not get absolutely demolished there. In fact, the corpse isn't even there. Must have been the wind. I can get the last stray smithing stone that I need from here. Next up, I make my way up Mount Gelmir, while also wondering how this scion offed himself. Did the big guy just die? I truly have no idea how. What did he do to himself? He might have just glitched through the floor. After the unknown death, it's now time to do a bit of Volcano Manor. I'm here to obtain a side quest that's gonna give me the armor that I want, and also pick up a few smithing stones here and there. Hello and goodbye. Time to join the eco-terrorists and get my first Mark Dash victim. But before I head over to the location to assassinate the target, I'm gonna head over to Murkwater Cave in order to get patches. But first the game requires me to bully a poor invader. Oh, he's dead. Now I shove around Patches a bit till he agrees to surrender. Now he appears in Volcano Manor and he's going to be useful to me a little bit later. Now on my way to the assassination target, I get the Strengthened Out Crystal Tier in order to infuse it into my Physic for a plus 10 to Strength. Now it's time to invade Old Knight Estevan. And just like the Invader NPC I just fought, he gets knocked down very easily and won't even get a chance to hurt me as long as I don't overshoot my crash target. But as long as I have my shield out actively in front of me, I'll be protected. Oh, he's done for. With the Old Knight NPC vanquished, I can now get an assassination quest from Patches, which is this bugger's assassination target. What a cheeky little bastard. But before I face the target, I need to level up myself and my shield. So first order of business, I level up my health and strength, buy some low tier smithing stones to upgrade my shield a bit, then head into the abandoned cave in order to get a talisman that I want, but first I gotta deal with the rot that's in here. Good thing I had some spare rot boluses that I picked up. And now it's time to make my way through this dark and disgusting cave, making sure to avoid getting afflicted by anything. And at the very end of this location, I fight two Clean Rot Knights that are bosses. Take you on for a ride. Luckily, each one of them can get easily staggered. But the problem is that there's two of them. Okay, I guess not anymore. But once one of them is taken down, the other one is somewhat of a cakewalk now. I was able to do it. The last enemy's projectile is a bit of an annoyance because it's capable of just staggering me out of my shield crash's animation. Son of a... But if timed correctly, there's no stopping the pain train. Whoa, what was that? With the death of the Rot Knight, I now get the Golden Scarab, which is a talisman that increases my rune gain. And I'm gonna be needing this and the Gold Pickled Foulfoot in order to get an absolute boatload of runes for killing Grail. And because my shield is capable of doing bleed damage quickly, this is gonna be done in no time. And after the dragon's death via bleed out, along with buffing my rune gain, I get a little bit over 123,000 runes. And I'm gonna be using this to level myself up along with my weapon. And speaking of leveling up and upgrading, I can still get a bit of smithing stones that I need. And pretty much all the smithing stone 6 that I can get right now is all in Mount Gelmir. For the ones in Volcano Manor, I have to go through lava in order to actually get them, along with a smithing stone 7. And the final smithing stone 6 that I need is inside of a breakable statue, graciously given by the Rune Bear. And now it's time for me to head back into the Celio Crystal Tunnel in order to fight the boss at the end of it, which is a boss that I rarely fight honestly, which is a Fallen Star Beast. I really need to get back into the groove because I'm just getting hit carelessly. And I completely forgot that it's even capable of grabbing me. Great, that was a grab. Also, his attacks can be very misleading if you're not careful. At the start of the fight, I would kill my Lachlan in order to try to hit the beast. The reason I did this was because in my other attempts, it felt like I was hitting dead air most of the time whenever I locked onto him. Eventually I went back to lock on during the fight because I found out it wasn't the lock on's fault, but mostly the boss itself because of how weirdly it moves sometimes. And after about 5 minutes of fighting the beast, it finally goes down, and I get 5 level 7 smithing stones. Also, I get a very useless somber stone bell bearing. Now it's time to farm a bit because I overspent my runes leveling myself up. And now I upgrade my shield up to plus 20. And all that hard work paid off with a very strong shield. Now it's time to deal with the assassination target. And fun fact, this location here at the side of the deck this lift
and poisoned
is one of the few locations that I lack experience in, which led to me getting very easily poisoned.
Damn poison, there's too much of it.
The game can't just give me any slack, can it?
How am I still alive? Oh, poison got me.
But once I knew the way through, I just ran right through it all. It didn't stop me from getting poisoned, but it got me to the end of the dungeon. And now it's time for me to fight the giant magma worm. Because of how slow and clunky the dragon is in the first phase, it was very easy to just stick to its sides and just attack. During the second phase, I would stay near the worm's crotch in order to effectively shield crash into it. But with very easy access to damaging it, I too in turn can be easily damaged by his attacks. But that's only from his slam attack though. And after repeatedly slamming my spiked shield into its crotch, it eventually goes down after the torturous pain I've inflicted into it. Poor thing just keels over. And after the failure of a dragon taken care of, it's time to face the assassination target, which is Great Horn Tragiff. And while I can easily hit him, he was quite a chunky fellow. Also, his ass is pretty damn heavy.
He does not give a shite son. That hurt.
Good thing he's not immune to bleeding out because this fight would have taken a lot longer.
Ooh, that's unfortunate.
But it did almost end as a fatality because of maximum glutes.
Ooh, that nearly killed me.
Also, his hammer flip is very good at roll catching me. Thankfully though, I was able to take him out. And my reward for doing that is his armor set, which is the armor set I'm going to be rocking to the end of the game. With this, I pretty much maxed out on poise, have a good amount of defense, but now I'm heavy and fat, just like a true pain train would be.
I am incredibly fat right now.
But this isn't the normal type of fat, this is the overloaded type of fat. So in order to alleviate that, it's time to level up my endurance.
I don't think that's even enough.
And there's one thing I don't want, it's being too damn heavy to run. But for now it's fine because I'm gonna stop being overloaded in a little bit. But before that, it's finally time for me to fight Margit. So in the fight against Margit, he had no chance. It was pretty much just a one-track mind fight. And it was just to bring my shield up and get the pain train rolling. And with how little damage he's doing to me, I had very little to fear. I have absolutely over-prepared myself. And because of that, poor Margit goes down in only about 40 seconds. With Margit defeated, it's now time for me to make my way up to Stormveil Castle. I wanted to take the sneaky path into the castle this time, but because I was overloaded, I used that as an excuse to not. I'm not liking this, so it's time to farm for a bit of runes in order to level up my stamina. And now I'm not overloaded, but just fat. The pain train got a tune-up and it ain't stopping. No beast or ogre abomination is gonna stop me. Except, you know, if I get cornered by a bunch of birds. Thanks, Nepheli. You were very helpful. At least I got my revenge afterwards. All that's left here in Stormveil Castle is just to activate this grace and to fight Godrick the Golden, who wasn't very golden as I pretty much just plowed right through all of his attacks. His pain train is bringing the hurt, as long as I have enough stamina though. At the start of the second phase, I just stagger him and that was pretty much the end of the fight. Poor guy only lasted about 55 seconds. But that's what you get for fighting a walking freight train. With the runes I obtained, I level up my endurance further. And then I go and get the Great Shield Talisman, which is going to help me tank hits while I use my shield crash. While getting that talisman, I decide to go and get another talisman in order to help with my weight problem. So it's time to head back to where I got my spiked Great Shield and fight the Knights of the Great Jar. These guys hurt me pretty bad at my level. But luckily they can get knocked out of the arena, which is a huge benefit for me as this is what I'm going to be doing against them. Also, the Golem arrows are absolutely terrifying in their tracking. Jesus. After witnessing that terrifying power, I just go and knock all of these duelists off the cliff. I honestly thought I was going to struggle a lot here, as I predicted that they were going to be very dodgy against me, but luckily I was proven wrong. And that also means every NPC is susceptible to this. Against the last guy, I went a little bit overboard with the charge. But fortunately, he was the last one, so I was able to obtain victory. And my reward is the Great Jar Arsenal. It increases my maximum equip load, but it literally made no difference as I was still continuing to fat roll even when I equipped it. Anyways, moving forward, I head into Redmane Castle, level up my health very quickly, and now it's time to put down poor Radahn. For the first phase, I just quickly made my way up to him and got my ass beat for a little bit. But once I got under the boss, it gave me a good chance to attack him. And while he was trying to buff himself up, that gave me a good opportunity to just bring in the pain train. And all that damage done was enough to bring him to phase 2. After he landed, I just continued charging at him, while also shielding myself to the best of my abilities, because for some reason he can sometimes just cut right through my shield, and that sort of shit cost me my win in the first attempt. But here in the second attempt, it's barely surviving with heart attacks here and there, and eventually poke his knee enough until he dies. The fight against Radahn lasted about 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and I died only one time. With the big guy and his tiny horse defeated, it's time to head underground where I find a mimic of myself, who I was able to inflict an endless amount of pain towards. The cycle never stops, and so shouldn't you, my mimic. Except, well, you're dead now. And after skipping the forest, just to get into the Knight's Sacred Ground, I get the Black Whetstone. This allows me to place the affinity of Poison Blood or Occult to my shield. And while the most practical right now would be Blood, and afterwards Occult for endgame, I'm gonna go with Poison for now. Look at those giant rusted spikes. It fits the logic of the shield to be poisoned. With that done, I get my third talisman slot, head back into the Loux ruins and quickly beat the boss here, in order to get the Ritual Sword Talisman, which for this challenge run was not at all that useful this time. Then I make a little quick detour to the Liurnia of the Lakes, in order to pick up the Glintstone's Craftsman's Cookbook number 4, which after getting the ingredients, consisting of crystal buds, here at the Scenic View Grace, Silver Tier Husks at the Knight's Sacred Ground Grace, and Root Resin at the War Master's Shack Grace, I can now make Shield Grease, which is gonna boost my shield's defense capabilities by a good bit. And what better way of displaying that by fighting the Draconic Tree Sentinel, although it takes a little bit of a while to plaster all that grease on top of my shield bow. And for what it's worth, it buffed my shield up by quite a good bit. And also during this fight, I poisoned and flinched the Draconic Tree Sentinel quite a good bit of times. While the fight looked like it went pretty smoothly, there was actually quite a lot of dodging involved, especially of the lightning variety. Later into the fight, I was even able to poison the boss again, but that didn't really even matter, because pretty much shortly right after, I just ended him. And after about 3 minutes and 22 seconds, the Sentinel with the Spicy Breath Horse goes down. Now it's time to finally head into the royal capital, which was a lot more dangerous than I remembered. and barely surviving by the skin of my teeth multiple times, while also being an absolute douche to the enemies. And after getting the grace nearest to the boss, I leveled up my health, endurance, and arcane up a bit again, and I went back to the round table to attempt to attach the Ash of War shield crash to the new shield that I just got, which is the Draconic Tree Sentinel shield. But unfortunately, it cannot be infused with an Ash of War. It's such a cool looking shield and design, but unfortunately no fun allowed, I guess. Anyways, it's time to head up the roots of the Earth Tree in order to fight Phantom Godfrey, who spanked me in my first attempt. Yep, not letting that happen to me again. And this time I'm gonna make sure my shield stays up after I charge him, because that's what I didn't do and it led me to my death. Quite a foolish thing of me to do, but as long as I have my shield up and stamina, everything is gonna go fine. And I was even able to stagger him. But because I got a little too greedy, that almost ended in my death. But eventually, after tanking my way through a few more attacks, Phantom Godfrey goes down and I get my final talisman pouch. And now I make a little quick visit to Patches to get Margit's shackle. Buff myself up at the front door. The last king of all feet, Margit. Seriously, why did they show his grippers? Anyways, to start the fight, I make Morgott bow and then run a train on him. And after he broke the shackle the second time, I just threw caution to the wind and kept the pain train going. 4 fully charged shield crashes were enough to bring him down to phase 2. And now at the start of phase 2, my recklessness was starting to catch up to me. And if I didn't drink a sippy here, I would have been dead. Grace be to my luck, I barely survived with a sliver of health. And I really shouldn't have pushed my luck too hard here when swords were raining down from the sky. These close calls were really too close for comfort. I honestly believe during this fight I should have been dead multiple times. But luckily for me, Lady Luck had other plans, and one of them was making sure Morgott dies. This fight lasted about 1 minute and 29 seconds, and I'm happy to be alive and doing it in my first attempt. With the boss fight over, I used the runes to level up my health, mind, and arcane. And now I make my way out of the capital, while being chased by a horse and horseman who is incapable of hitting a running fat guy. It's pretty funny just seeing them give up. That was quite the embarrassment if you ask me. And now it's time to traverse through all of the mountaintop of the giants, and activate one grace for way later into the run, and the other for what I'm about to do next. And if you predicted to fight the Godskin Ghost duo, then you're correct. Which is pretty much just as funny as me falling to my death in the dark. Fuck. But in all seriousness, I'll deal with these guys later, because right now it's time to actually fight fire giants. Besides the inaccurate hurt boxes, the fight against the giant went pretty well. Kind of. While it wasn't that hard to hit the initial attack, Fire Giant's constant movement made hitting his weak spot a tad bit annoying. Not much else to say except for attack whenever he's kinda stationary. Dodge the fire that he shoots out. Continue pressing on the attack. And dodge even more fire. His bleed resistance is the same as his poison resistance, so as long as I keep consistently attacking him, I take him down to phase 2. At the start of phase 1, I just eat an entire arm slam to the face. And afterwards, I don't care where I hit him, I just need to keep on hitting him. Because hitting his arms in this phase is a tad bit annoying because he just consistently keeps on moving them. So my focus here is just to build up status effects to take him down. And after pretty much just letting the time run, he just dies of poison. Such an anticlimactic fall for the fire giant. This fight took about 10 minutes and 19 seconds, and I ended up dying 2 times against the fire giant. After the fight, I leveled up my mind and health. Needed to focus on mind a bit more because I almost ran out of FP. And after getting knocked the fuck out by the slightest touch of a female, I now have access to Farum Azula, which is the second to last stretch of the game. And as I get the grace here near the boss arena, I had no idea of the bullcrap that was in store for me. Also, before the fight, I went to the Summon Water Village in order to get the green turtle charm to increase my stamina regeneration, and the Feathers Cookbook number 1 for sleeping pots. And I'm gonna need a lot of sleeping pots for this. Now it's time to deal with the absolute bullcrap that is the Godskin duo, which will always be my most hated and buggy boss to fight.
Are you
Which will always be my most hated boss fight in this game. Because of him, I had to slaughter a whole bunch of unulcerated tree spirits, just to get their golden seeds so I can upgrade my flask amount to the max. Alright, for the Godskin duo, my strategy was to put one of them to sleep. And while one of them is napping away, I deal with the other one as fast as I could. And whenever they would try to go to their second form, they'll just get a face full of sleeping pot. And that would allow me to safely keep on damaging them as long as the other one hasn't woken up yet. The fight against them was very long and required a lot of patience. Also, I forgot that the Godskin Apostle spinning attack is capable of reflecting my projectiles. But after a long cycle of them sleeping and me ramming them awake, you know, wink wink, I eventually took them down in about 6 minutes and 42 seconds. With the Godskins finally taken care of, I finally level up my shield to plus 24. After that victory, I now believe is a good time to challenge the Spirit Caller Cave again. These Godskins don't hurt as bad as the Farum Azula ones, but the only problem is that they can't be afflicted by statuses except for sleep. So unfortunately for me, I could not rely on poison and bleed damage. So my focus for these Godskins was just to tank right through their attacks. And with the final Lord of Ball rollout, I took out the main threats of the boss. Then I bullied this disgusting snail. And as a reward, I get the Godskin Swaddling Cloth, which allow multi-hits to heal me. Which was actually very good for this weapon because it easily procs it. While I'm back here, it seems a good time to activate the dragon elevator right here. But gotta make sure that Alexander spawns after that. Though fighting Alexander was a piece of cake. The end attack of Shield Crash would always make him flinch. And as the poor jar breathes his last, we get the Shard of Alexander. Run through the lightning and birds in order to fight the dragon that's ruining everyone's day. This ancient dragon might have a very low amount of health, but it was still one chunky damn bastard that took multiple shield crashes to take down. And when it does finally go down, I get rewarded with the ancient dragon smithing stone, which after getting the grace below the Great Bridge, level up, and do a rematch fight against Draconic Tree Sentinel again. Which, spoiler alert, I won. I can now finally upgrade my Spiked Palisade Shield to plus 25. And now for one of the upcoming bosses, I'm going to de-equip one piece of armor in order to actually medium roll. And for right now, this boss's name is Maliketh. During the first attempt, I was checking which of the boss's attack was the best to just plow right through, which ultimately led to my death, but this is just a minor setback. But that's just a minor setback. Because through the power of learning, I realized that crashing right through his poke attack would yield the best results that I want. So that's pretty much exactly what I did for all of phase 1. It's also the only other good time that he gets hurt by the full shield crash. The other opportunities that I used to shield crash the boss seemed like it didn't hit consistently. And with the poison pretty much just leeching his life away, that's pretty much it for phase 1. For phase 2, I just used the same usual opportunities to attack him. And also it was very easy to reapply poison on him again. And whenever he'd attack, I just shield right through it. But the problem with that is that the life drain is an absolute killer. And I need to keep an eye on that health loss if I don't want to die. And after about 5 minutes and 5 seconds, Maliketh goes down. And I only suffered 1 death fighting this boss. With the final area of the game unlocked, I now level up my health and endurance again. And now before I go do a bit of optional stuff, I make my way through the Ash Capital to quickly just bully Gideon.
What a sad state of affairs.
It's funny how in different challenge runs he's either very easy to kill or very difficult to fight. There's almost never an in-between, and in this case, he was unable to do anything at all. With Gideon's state being unalive, I level up my health again, and now head my way through Castle Sol, mostly known as the most welcoming place of all of Elden Ring. Funny how the most difficult part of Castle Sol is just trying to get to the midway grace. But anyways, I'm here to fight Commander Niall and his imaginary ghost friends. With enough shield crash spamming, they were pretty easy to take out. And once they were dealt with, Commander Niall was actually as easy as they were. Of course there still has to be a bit of dodging here and there, but as long as he doesn't do his large AoE attacks, I can just paint train right through. Not that he hurts much because of the armor that I'm wearing. Sorry Commander Niall, but the code won't stop the pain train. And after one last rush attack, the boss goes down. The fight lasted about 3 minutes and 50 seconds. And with Castle Sol conquered, I get 1/2 of the secret medallion. And then quickly get the other half at the village of the Albinaurics. In order to fumble my way through the elevator again, just like last time. I keep forgetting that I have to switch to the medallion that I have to use. Now I instantly make my way to the liturgical town and enter the jail. And now I deal with the archers in here the most ruthless way possible. Now that I'm here at the Haligtree, I take advantage of my Ash of War's ability to knock back enemies. Now I make my way down the branches, get knocked off the branches by a bunch of angry ants. I'm not going to be taking this shortcut this time, so I'm just going to be doing it the old-fashioned way, just sneaking my way through. And after activating the shortcut, it's now time to deal with Haligtree Loretta. So to start off the initial fight right, I just hug the wall here to cut line of sight, which forces her to get close to me if she wants to spawn her little flying swords. And now the rest of the fight is pretty much just a bunch of magic arrow dodging, and waiting for her to attack so I can respond with my own attack. Also, I didn't know I can actually cancel her from spawning her magic if I hit her with the end of the shield crash. That's a nice little welcoming surprise to the fight. Gotta love canceling out of her animation. And once she got cornered over here, this was pretty much the end of the fight. Her magic can't hit me in close range, and she's incapable of running away. The fight lasted about 2 minutes and 44 seconds, and yeah, poor Loretta got absolutely destroyed. Hell, I had a much more difficult time dealing with the knight right after. These Rot Knights are a little too buffed up if you ask me. Anyways, it's time to take the safe way to the next area, avoiding enemies as much as possible. Then shield crash my way through the pool water. Then dodge the absolute bug bukkake in the area right after. Those damn pest threads are overly aggressive. You can't be slacking around them. Time to level up my strength up a bit. And now it's time to fight one of Elden Ring's most notorious boss, Malenia. The main problems I had against her was her hyper armor screwing up the flow of the pain train. And by fighting I mean dying to Malenia by getting turned into a diced onion. While it is kind of easy to knock her around, her just being able to just sidestep some of my attacks, which would usually turn out bad for me. And lastly, it's Waterfowl Dance. One mistimed shield crash used is enough to end the attempt. And that's because I don't know how to dodge her Waterfowl Dance at close range. The people that can do that are insane. I'm gonna be practicing that on my own time later. For now, I'm just gonna be taking the full brunt of the lumps. Alright, this is not going well. I think it's time to switch my shield's affinity to more bleed. Okay, so the winning attempt against Malenia. Alright, for the start against Malenia, everything is sunshine and rainbows. As long as my shield crash hits and she doesn't try to deflect it, she gets easily knocked down. But that's of course if she doesn't use an attack that has hyper armor. But when she's down to about like 1/3 or 1/4 of her health, that means it's time to back off and wait for her to waterfowl me. And once I've dodged it, I can just now continue the pain train. Damn, her health recovery is insane. But I do have to be careful when she sidesteps me while I'm attacking. And if she does, I break lock on in order to prevent myself from getting hit in the back. Now it's pretty much just rinse and repeat now in the first phase. And after tanking right through some of her attacks, I finished the first phase. Now here in the second phase, I continue doing what I do best, which is ramming my spike into her. But I do have to be careful in the follow-up because she has a mean kick on her. I'm not gonna lie, I was absolutely shitting my pants right here because I thought I got cornered. Yeah, changing my spike palisade to inflict more bleed was the best idea I had. While it was amusing seeing her get poisoned, you know, with her being the goddess of rot, I needed good progress. And dying a little too many times isn't good progress. Because of the insane amount of bleed I was inflicting, I got her health down pretty low, pretty fast. And that means she starts doing discarded Aeonias again. And what further that means is free damage. And with one final bleed out, Malenia goes down. The fight lasted about 8 minutes and 11 seconds, and I ended up dying 15 times. Alright, I don't want to hear you moping, Malenia. Just shut it. Alrighty, with the runes I obtained, I load up Arcane, bring back my shield's affinity to poison again, and now it's time to fight the final 3 bosses, and first up, it's Godfrey. First phase Godfrey was just pretty much the same as his Phantom version again, except this one is not immune to status effects like his Golden Shade version. Which means he's going to be taking the full power of the pain train. He's very easy to poison, but a bit difficult to bleed out. But that doesn't really matter to me because I'll just tank right through his hits and continue on bringing the pain. Great, now it's on to phase 2. And to start off, I shield crash him, and everything else afterwards could have gone a lot better. But once I got my bearings back, I poisoned him. and continued charging right through. Except that I continued to make mistakes that should have cost me the win. No, Godfrey, please don't. Okay, that did less damage than I thought it was going to. I don't know how, but I'm very happy to be alive here. But finally, after taking a few hits here and there with my shield crash, Mr. Warrior here finally goes down. This fight lasted about 4 minutes and 42 seconds, and first attempt. Hooray! Now it's time to level up for the final time. Make sure my equipment is in order. And now it's time to fight Radagon. Alright, for the fight against Radagon, the strategy is very simple. To start off the encounter, I just spam shield crash. And once I hit him enough and he gets poisoned, I now just dodge his attacks. And when he lets up a bit, I shield crash, tank any of the other hits that he tries to hit me with, and I inflict the damage. Aside from the close calls I had against him, such as mistiming my roll and nearly dying, by getting hit by the final part of his hammer down attack. Even though he did teleport quite a lot in this battle, I was eventually able to take him down. And now it's time to buff myself for the final part. And that is the majestic looking Elden Beast. While the beast is completely immune to status effects, the amount of damage I do to it with the shield crash is more than enough to make up for that. No more relying on my affinity bonuses. It's time to run the pain train on the final boss. There really wasn't anything noteworthy about this fight, except the usual amount of projectile dodging. I did get hit occasionally, but it never was anything fatal. The Godskin Swaddling Cloth was pretty much the MVP of this fight. It would usually keep my health topped off with how often I attacked. And after fumbling the end a little bit, I was eventually able to put the Elden Beast to rest. The fight lasted about 10 minutes and 24 seconds, and I surprisingly did it in my first attempt. I really wasn't expecting that. I was anticipating a few deaths here and there, not victory. Well, that's it. Challenge run over. I beat the game using shield crash and being an absolute pain train. This one was actually a very fun run to do. Aside from fat rolling for a majority of the game, everything went pretty well. Of course, there were a few annoying bosses, such as the Godskins and Malenia this time around, but when isn't there in these challenge runs that I do? And one last thing, I'm going to try to upload videos a lot more often than I do right now, so hopefully look forward to that. But yeah, I had a blast, and I suggest you do this if you're bored and want to try something new in Elden Ring. Well, I'm going to keep the outro short, and this has been Worn Out Gamer 4. Make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell notification for alerts when I post a new video. And thanks for watching this video and my previous videos if you have as well. Later.